Anyway.
I'm just saying there's plenty of ways to start a podcast.
And you just started mine for me. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching that. Jake forgets that I edit the podcast.
You do.
So now he has started it for me.
I'm just looking for ways to always improve around here for you, Sylvia.
Yup.
Yeah.
We're all about that change.
All right. Well,
Love it.
There you go.
Gosh. You know what? Why don't you just go ahead and start by retelling us the story that you told on Sunday.
Yeah.
About your friend and how...
The one that I told and like everybody was confused and had no point, understood why.
It wasn't that it was... no.
My wife and I talk, I know.
It was funny because you basically told everybody at a church that you are going to be the lead pastor.
Yeah.
That nobody should trust you.
Yeah, that was
you're
great.
You're kind of finicky.
I did have people come up to me afterwards and were like, so what'd you get suspended 3 times for? And I was like, oh, did I actually say that?
Oh, I said that out loud. Okay.
Shoot.
Not just in my
Yeah,
head.
should have put that one off the notes.
I guess now, for anybody who's watching,
yeah.
Redemption, go ahead.
Redemption. Well, so what do you, I mean, I told the story. So am I retelling the story or what do you want me to do there?
Yeah, retell the story because I need to. I forgot if I actually, like, at the time, I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then now I'm just thinking you were just making fun of your self. So just go ahead and retell it.
Okay.
We got time.
Riveting stuff is what you're telling me. You were enthralled. Okay. Yeah, I can tell. Good.
Yeah,
totally we were talking about the idea of in Scripture, Paul's talking earlier on as we're in Romans chapter 2 here on this idea of, hey, some of the Jewish believers just thought like, hey, we're Jewish, so we're still favored, we're still special. God's just going to forgive us for everything because they were favored. And that's true when you go to the Old Testament, like God had set them apart to be his chosen people. So I told the story of my friends Stephanie and Allie and how I kind of got caught between the two of them. Stephanie was highly favored, if you will, amongst everybody because...
Goody two-shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stephanie, if you're watching this, I apologize. Like, we didn't talk about this beforehand. So.
All good things.
All good things.
I still don't believe Jake, so.
Yeah, right. And anyway, so Stephanie she was great. Great student, fantastic, one of the best softball pitchers in the city, and she is truly a sweetheart. Like, Stephanie wouldn't hurt a fly, you know. And so I take my friend Allie and my friend Nate, and we go down to a Reds game. We're just having a good time. We're just hanging out as friends. And I had felt like being gracious that day, so, like, I had paid for stuff. Don't laugh when I say I felt like being gracious. So I'm throwing a humble brag in here. Would you just let it fly?
Sorry,
Come on.
Continue.
Man. Anyway, I was being super cool like I am. And we had a great time with everything. And then as we came back, somebody had pranked Allie's car. And it's been like 15 years. Some of the questions, I know we got a question that's like, hey, give me more details on this. Yeah. There was no like real physical damage. It was more goofy damage. There were things in her car. I don't know how they got in there or remember exactly what all was there. But then they had taken like and just put graffiti on the windows. You know, they go through a what are those called? Car wash. Yeah. And it would go away. And then they saran wrap the car, all that stuff. Really harmless pranking stuff or whatever. Come to find out what it was is Stephanie wanted to do it. And her boyfriend at the time, who's now her husband, who's also named Jake, really good dude. And they did this and like joked and all that kind of stuff. And then as Allie is thinking like I had totally set her up and doesn't know like who did anything there, just that I had set her up. I don't know if she thought like during the 7th inning stretch I was driving a half an hour up and pranking her car or what, but I had no idea and had nothing to do with this one. And when Allie and her mom got really mad, they got really mad at me and like nothing with Stephanie because she's highly favored. Stephanie would never do that. She has the get out of jail free card. I deserve to be in prison. It was my card in their eyes. So I was like, oh, well, there you go. So hopefully that's a little bit better of an explanation. No physical damage. Right. It's just saran wrap, goofy stuff, purely like pranking things.
Well, yeah, hopefully now everybody's like, okay, that's better. But I don't know. I still think you had something to do with it. And honestly, too, I didn't realize you were such a big figure skating fan, you know? Like, that was so cool to learn about you.
We got tickets to go to this pairs figure skating thing. A lot of times they do different routines and stuff like that. But in one of the events, like for their cumulative thing, the pairs will come together and they'll all do the exact same routine to the exact same song. Mm-hmm. So about 3 or 4 routines in, we've recognized like, hey, we've heard this song and seen these moves again and again and again. How long is this event kind of thing, right? Well, go back in time and like a day or two before in Salt Lake City, me and my siblings went tubing. And long story short, I got a concussion. Okay. once again, another story. I have a lot of Salt Lake City stories. And like we didn't do anything about it, like that I had a concussion. Like, you're supposed to keep people awake or whatever. Yeah, no, not at all. Like they let me fall asleep and I woke up in the backyard with like snow up here because I just wandered into the backyard and had no idea, right? So all these concussion symptoms, and we just kind of ignored it apparently. So now, a day or two later, we're at this event and they're pair skating and going everywhere. And there's this happy little Korean couple in front of us. Very kind. They got their shirts, supporting their country and all that.
Yeah.
And the woman's wearing this beautiful mink coat. The man's all dressed up nicely too. And I don't know what it was, but I started to feel a little dizzy, probably because I'm slightly concussed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just throw up all over this lady's mink coat.
Oh.
Like just blah, all on top of her, right? And I was just like, I didn't even know what to do or say. Yeah. I just stood up and left, right? I just go to the bathroom or whatever. And I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? So then I come back in the arena and my brother sees me and he stands up and he goes, Chuck, there's my brother Chuck. What's up, Chuck?
What are siblings for?
Yeah, right. Like the whole time. And this lady was so kind and gracious and nice and smelled horrible after that. But, yeah. So there's another one of my goofy Salt Lake City stories. Yeah.
Well, okay, so
I love Paris figure skating.
Yes,
yeah, that's what we learned.
So we've recapped kind of the crazy stories.
The crazy stories, yeah.
Do you want to give a recap of the message?
Oh,
like
the actual thing that we're talking about.
The people are wanting to.
Yeah. So we're in the series. This is week 2 of Getting It Right, and we're just going through basically the first 8 chapters of Romans, recognizing Paul is trying to make a case to the Roman church of what he's preaching and what he's teaching, so that they can kind of partner together and then take the gospel even further west and towards Spain. And so Paul's making this argument, or he's making this case for Jesus, and he's stacking argument on top of argument. And we discussed chapter 1 last week, this idea that we're all broken. Mm-hmm. And then this week is this idea that God's judgment is right, that God is the right judge. Like he's the only one who can really judge appropriately because he's perfect and he knows what's going on in our hearts and all that, and how we do a really poor job of being judges. But we even kind of jumped into some of Jesus's teachings that judging is still important. It's one of the ways that justice comes about in the world. But when we judge as Christ followers, we don't do it by poking people in the eye with their problems. We get better to help others get better. And so when I judge somebody, it's with that recognition that I'm broken and I'm trying to make myself better so I can help other people with their brokenness. So really our judgment is just recognizing the brokenness in the world and getting our hands dirty to be able to help out.
Yeah. I was just I don't know why the question just popped in my head, but like when you were doing this, you had to have been thinking of times where we're in the women's group. I just had, we're doing the women's Bible study groups.
The Colossians group.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about how it has nothing to do with us, but it has everything to do with God and like what he does. Like I don't do it.
Yeah.
He does it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So did you just have, when you're doing this, like, man, I had times when I was broken and I called people out and like I messed up or like, those things. Cause I was just thinking back about like my life. I almost like I don't want to call anybody out because I know like I don't know.
Yeah, don't throw stones and live in a glass house, right?
I don't know. Yeah. But so I guess what was your process like? Were you thinking about yourself and others, or mostly yourself, or?
Yeah, I think a big piece of what was going through my mind was just like, as you said, there's this cultural narrative around us that we can't really judge or call anybody out on anything, right? Everybody's living their truth because they're a unique individual with unique experiences and they're handling it in a unique way kind of thing. And that's just not quite biblical. Like there is such a thing as right and wrong in the world. And it's not your truth or my truth or our preferences. It's what God says to be right or wrong. And when that's out of line, we're right to recognize that and call that out in the world, whether that's in politics, whether that's systemic, whether that's just somebody's actions and all this or that. Like we need to be ambassadors for what is right, and that's what judgment is supposed to be, standing up for what is right in the world. But we do it in a manner that we just recognize we're flawed. And so I think the ability to judge with humility is very different than throwing stones and living in a glass house. It's that recognition that says, hey man, this is wrong. Like this is broken and we need to do stuff over there. I'm not saying I'm better than you in that. I've got my own stuff to deal with, but man, I want to help out. And I think that's the difference in the judgment piece too, is the ability to help out or the ability to just, point fingers and all the other stuff. You know, it really comes down to getting your hands dirty when you see some of these injustices.
Well, so like, what does that look like? I guess like what, like you don't have to give like specific examples, but like, because I think that's what I was thinking of in Sunday when it's like, if I'm somebody trying to like, okay, I'm thinking of something very specific. I guess I could have sent in a question for the podcast, but you know,
right,
like
sure.
What does that look like? Because we always say like, you know, I guess I say when I share just Jesus with people, I'm talking about my life and my experiences, but maybe if I'm seeing something that like I haven't experienced, but I also know because of the word that it's wrong, like what does that look like? Like, because I would say that we have to love people.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, when that goes south, what would you encourage people to do? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the reality is anything we do, we're trying to stand up for what's right, or we're starting to stand up for Jesus. There's going to be times where it's going to feel like it's going south on us. Let's keep in mind, we serve a crucified Savior, no, resurrected, but was crucified. And they were, like Jesus said, like they came at your prophets, they're coming to me, they're going to come at you too. Like just recognize that piece of it. So don't expect to always be received with high fives and hugs. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. But I think there's ways to recognize anything that's broken. Like we can look at stuff and say, you know, hey, the foster care system in the world is broken. Like what they do with these kids or these families and this or that, and to constantly bash it, but to never as a church, to never as individuals step in and make a difference in that, that matters. Yep. That matters. You know, when you see stuff that maybe it's a hunger issue, or you see maybe it's a racism issue, or it's an equality issue, or it is just abuses by those in power or whatever, whatever it may look like, it's just the ability to say, not just say, oh, that's wrong, but to jump in and do something. Or somebody, maybe it's a lifestyle choice that they have that you recognize as wrong. Maybe it's alcoholism, maybe it's whatever. It's not judgmental to have a loving conversation with somebody that says, hey man, this path leads to destruction. Like I love you too much and I want what's best for you so much that I'm not just going to say, well, they make their decisions. No, if I love you and care about you, I'm going to be able to step in and say, hey man, I want to support you in this. How can I help you? What steps do you want to go to meetings together? Do I need to be able to do that? I talked a little bit about my Uncle Russell and just his advice with him and Rob, and that was just a fun time. But one of my favorite things, and I've mentioned this about him before, Russ had this innate ability of loving the broken so well. He had a friend who, and Russ is in his 80s at this point in time, like early 80s. He had a car to drive, but was, you know, not a great driver or any of that kind of stuff. And he had a friend who had a drug addiction. And Russ saw that and basically told him, like, hey, I want to help you in this kind of stuff. He didn't just say, oh, you need to get better and push him to the side. He actually, for a year and a half, drove them like 45 minutes to the hospital so that they could get medicine that they needed every single day to try and overcome this addiction. And he's 80-some years old. Like, that's the ability to say, I'm going to get my hands dirty. I mean, if anybody in the world, Russ would have never been the guy that I would have said needs to make that drive. But he saw brokenness and decided, I'm not just going to judge this person, I'm going to help this person. And he recognized too from his own experiences in life, his own brokenness. And I think he's a good example of saying and recognizing my brokenness makes me more compassionate and humble and loving to other people in theirs. Yeah.
And that's kind of like, maybe you haven't experienced the same things as somebody else, but like, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just broken. Like broken's broken.
Broken is broken.
But no, I think too, maybe an encouragement for some people would be to like pray before you just go guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
People about what, because maybe like you truly aren't prepared or you don't know the whole story. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that's just a way to be smart with that and like to, I don't know.
Well, just asking questions, right? Like as a society of figuring that out from one another. There might be something that I look at and I'm like, dude, that's messed up. I can't believe Sylvia's making those decisions in her life right now. Like, why would she do these things? But it's one thing for me to just make those assumptions or even berate you for them. It's another one for me to seek to understand by asking questions and then come from a place of, okay, can I help? Is there something I can be able to do here? And you may not want my help, right? Yeah. And that's not on me if you reject that. Like that's a decision that you choose to make. But if I care about you and I'm coming from a place of love and want it to be different, like I'm willing to get my hands dirty to help you out.
And another thing that I just loved, like you were just talking about, where a lot of the times people can like chirp in and say something about like a system or something at the church they don't like.
Yeah.
I just saw a video the other day that's like, you want to know where your talents would be used and like where we want you to serve in the church, where you think it's lacking right now.
Yeah.
Like you think that the greeters aren't doing great, then please come serve and be a greeter because let's go. Like,
there's some truth to that. Yeah.
But it was just so funny as you were talking about that on Sunday. That was one of my biggest still is a pet peeve, is when I'm working so hard on something and somebody's like, well, I don't think we should do that. And I'm like, okay, what's your idea? I don't know.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Like, I've been putting so much time and energy into this. I have like an exact moment when I was in high school, and like, you know, high school is just dumb anyways, but being like a like class president, class vice president, you know, like whatever. And I'm sitting up here talking to the entire class with my, you know, president, treasurer, whatever. Like, this is what I think we're going to do. You know, we talked to a lot of different people. And then all of a sudden somebody was like, I don't think we should, like, I don't like that. And like other people, I'm like, okay. Like what should we do?
Right.
I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, I kindly ask you to be quiet until you do know.
Cool. Chair's still there. Yeah.
Right? Like, come on, guys, help me out. But I think maybe a lot of people have stories like that where you're like, what?
Yeah.
And get in there. Like, you're like, get your hands dirty. Like, start doing something.
Yeah, it's that idea, and I didn't really talk about it this way, but I've always referred to it as problem identifiers and problem solvers. Mm-hmm. I don't want to work with problem identifiers. They're useless. Yeah. Because we all are problem identifiers. We know. You know what problems are happening. You want somebody who's a problem solver, and that's somebody who cares to make a difference, somebody who's willing to put in effort and do that. And, man, I would just hope that as Christians, as Christ followers, man, we do a better job of being problem solvers than problem identifiers, because the problem identifiers are the ones that people get mad at and say, like, you're throwing stones, glass house. Like, why are you doing that? But the problem solvers, for the most part, like, those are the people that are appreciated. Yeah. Hey, I recognize we know our own brokenness. Like, we know it. And when you're trying to help me with my brokenness, I can be much more receptive to that. Now, maybe not. Maybe I'm caught in my own brokenness, and so I'm not. But when you're willing to come in here and help me solve my problems, well, that's just totally different than you just constantly telling me that I am a problem, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, this message, you kept joking, saying, like, I get the fun ones.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I actually put the whole format out for this series, so I kind of did it to myself.
Give it to yourself. That's fine. But this is kind of like a funny topic because, like you said, we're in a culture, we just don't do that. Like, and I know in my life, like, I don't do that. Like, I am like, it'll figure it out. Like, it'll figure itself out. You know, like, you get worried about that. And so I like how you put it, just saying, like, you know, asking questions and, like, how can I help, instead of, like, this is wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's just a nicer way of putting it. And maybe other people haven't thought of that either.
Yeah.
But, well, hey, we got a lot of stuff coming up at the church, you said.
We do.
Actually, we just had Kids Day.
We did. That was fun.
Jenna put on Kids Day, on Saturday. Oh, that was so fun. Yeah. That was fun for me. I was a parent. I showed up afterwards. There were all these kids running around the church. Yeah. Shout out to Joe for cleaning it all up.
He's the best. With a happy heart, walking around, whistling. He's just great.
Like, thank you. I saw him, like, walking away from a mess.
Yeah.
And another one happened at the exact same time. We were like, oh, Joe, like, please help us. So
sorry, man.
That was very nice, very kind of him. But it was a great time. I love seeing kids run around in the hallways of church. Like,
I did too.
I don't know what it is.
I have to love it because my kids run around in the hallways
doing it. Yeah,
church.
They're running around, candy, crazy. You know, that was a lot of fun. And I know she has lots of other events too for 4th and 5th graders.
Yeah, she's got like an overnight thing coming up.
Yeah,
that's all fun. In there. Yeah, that'll be good, fun stuff.
And then Andy.
Nerf Nebula. Yeah.
I love the little graphic for that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's fun. There's a part of me, I want to grab a Nerf gun and just run around a building like this shooting people with it.
Do you need any leaders?
Yeah. Like, how fun is that? Chaperone? Absolutely. But I've learned also at my age that, like, you jump into those and you just get ganged up on.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah. It's not as much fun as you think. You are. Yeah. It's all against you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden you hit an age where that turns and you're like, this isn't as much fun anymore.
Cool anymore?
Yeah.
Like,
how did that happen?
Yeah.
Do they not recognize how amazing I am?
But for the people that don't want to be there, little, like, Easter egg, look for Nerf darts throughout the church, because
for like the next year.
Yeah, they're around.
I found one 3 weeks ago in a spot. They're everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. But again, that's cool. Like, I love when kids just get to run around.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Because this is like their church home.
Yeah. Yeah, they are the church.
Yes,
Yeah.
like this is the ownership part where it's like, yeah. So I really like that. What else? Am I forgetting?
Some women's stuff happening.
Yep.
You just mentioned that, you're leading a group.
Yep. There's groups going on, Bible study going over Colossians, and then the worship night.
Yep.
Coming up in 2 Saturdays.
Yeah.
Not this Saturday.
Yeah, which will be really cool. I know they're pushing hard for some ladies to tell stories of how God is moving in their life. And I think that's going to be probably one of the coolest things for the night.
Oh, yeah.
Is just hearing people talk about what God is doing in their life in incredible ways.
Yeah.
It's just going to be really fun for them.
Yeah, I think so too. So can you give us a sneak peek into what next week is like? Do you know what the next... I mean, you're not doing it.
I'm not doing it. We actually... Let me slowly talk here while I pull this document up. I don't think it is, actually.
No, is it Chandler?
It's Chandler. I think it's Chandler.
Jake Chandler.
Yeah. Jake Chandler. So Jake,
the other Jake.
We'll use his whole name, I guess. Yeah, he is. He's coming up February 16th. We're gonna jump into chapter 3. We're gonna spend the next 2 weeks actually in chapter 3. It looks like, and Jake is coming down. Jake does his house up at Michigan Tech. Up in the UP, and is doing a fantastic job of just reaching out to college students up there and kind of growing that program really from the ground up in a lot of ways, him and Michaela. So we love Jake. I'm excited for Jake to come in and get to hang out and talk and be a part of it. But he's one of the missionaries we support, and I always just love when we get have our missionaries come in. Yeah. And he's homegrown. He's from Northpointe. Yeah.
Extra special.
Yeah. Saw his mom and dad on Sunday, man. Love it.
Well, thanks, Jake, and thanks, everybody, for watching. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please send us in some questions for next week, and we'll see you on Sunday.